going to talk about my homeless experience since so many people are online talking about finding themselves homeless. A homestead journey has done several compilations with people talking about be finding themselves homeless in 2026. And of course, as we know, lots of people are living in their vehicles. I was in New York City for 7 months from September until April. And I hadn't lived in New York City for an extended period for a long time, but in going back, I was just shocked to see how many people were living in their vehicles. And as a result, when you're walking down the street, lots of cars have people in them because they're living in their cars. So you know that the state of homelessness is off the chain in New York City, and it's a place that I'm glad I never was homeless in. But the first time I was homeless happened in 2012 in New Orleans, and I wasn't unhoused homeless. I was housed homeless, so I stayed in different homeless shelters. And the first time was in New Orleans, and I became homeless because a person that I thought was a friend threatened to cut my head off. And that's why I was homeless. I wasn't going to live for no extended length of time with someone who threatened to cut my head off. And so that was a situation that I had to have some place to stay. And so the homeless shelter was the next best thing. When I arrived in New Orleans, I didn't know anyone except this person who threatened to cut my head off. Like I said, I thought they were a friend. So that was how it happened the first time. That was why it happened the first time. But it was only for 2 months, because once I left that homeless um, shelter situation, I moved it. I was a part of a program called Shared Living, and it was for people who needed a place to stay, who would be paired with someone who needed someone to help them in the home. And I was able to be introduced to a woman who needed me, and I needed her, and it worked out. And I ended up living with her for, I think it was 3 months. I was with her for 3 months. And that's another story all by itself. The second time I was homeless was 5 years later when I was in Seattle. And I ended up in Seattle because when I left Honolulu, I did not want to be on the East USA, the east side of the USA. So I said, nope, I'm not going back to New York or anywhere on the East Coast. And so I opted for the West Side. And so in leaving Honolulu, the cheapest ticket that could be found was going to Seattle. So I said, okay, I'm going to take it. I had always wanted to go to Seattle. I had heard a lot about Seattle. So I said, fine. So I went. That's how I ended up in Seattle. But I didn't know anybody when I got there. And I'm the type of person that I'll do something and worry about it later. Yeah, I will. It's not irresponsible because I know that sometimes it's hard to make a decision, but then sometimes you just got to do it. Just like Nike say, just do it. And so I'll take a leap of faith. So I ended up in Seattle. I didn't know anybody. I knew I needed some place to stay, and so I think I rented a hotel for a couple of nights, and then I said, okay, you need to look for some place you can stay at long term. So I was able to find different places. For a while, I stayed at different places. Stay here a week, stay there a week, stay there here 2 weeks. And it was just the basic. It was like a 2-inch mat on the floor. You find you a space on the floor, and that's where you slept. And you rarely got any sleep because the toilet was always running all night because they were being flushed, and it was always a lot of people walking, and people have all kinds of problems, and it's just never ending. So it's very stressful being homeless, but you have to figure out a way to deal with it. It's not easy. Not by any stretch of the imagination is it an easy thing. So in Seattle, I got a long-term stay, and it was supposed to be for, I believe, 6 months. I think that that was the maximum, but I ended up staying for 8 months. Yes, it was 8 months of craziness, and I needed a place to stay in Seattle. So the home that's why the homeless shelter came into play. And in being in homeless shelter, you learn that people are there for any number of reasons. I know today in 2026 is different from the way it was in 2017 when I first arrived in Seattle. You found that a lot of people, there were a lot of older homeless women. That's one thing I noticed. There was a lot of women that was older than 70. And when I was in Seattle, how old was I? I guess 58, something like that. And a lot of women were older women, a great large portion of them. And so women are there, but senior citizens, and I know sometimes people's family just kind of discard them and don't care. They have children who don't care. Then there are women who are there because they want to be off drugs, but in order to do it, they can't be around with their children. So they'll go into a homeless shelter to get clean, and they have a spouse, and they know that the children will be taken care of. Some women do the homeless shelter because they simply don't want to pay that money for rent. So if they could be homeless for even a month, that helps them to save a chunk of money for whatever it is they're saving it for. Women are there, because of trauma from domestic violence. Some people are ex-convicts. I remember when I was in homeless in the New Orleans mission in New Orleans, I met a guy who had been in prison for 30 years. So you're around all kinds of people, and you don't know people's stories. People be fighting addiction. And one lady, when I was in New Orleans, she wanted alcohol so bad, she was drinking and rubbing alcohol. Rubbing alcohol. And she ended up, I think they had to put her away. But yeah, so you have to come into lots of people, and of course, mental illness is rampant. Mental illness, substance abuse, trauma, and it just gets to be too much sometimes. It can be very stressful. And of course, since 2017, way, lots of people are now finding themselves homeless, people who never thought that it could happen to them. And yeah, it can be a scary situation. And now with people, so many people living in their vehicles because that's the best they can do. And I understand it. I understand it. But yeah, you have to figure out a way to deal with it. And I know being house homeless is different from uh, being unhoused homeless. Unhoused homeless is just perilous. That's all I can say about that. And the two times I was homeless, I was never unhoused homeless. It was always in the shelter. So I had that protection. And thank goodness for the time that I was homeless, I was never SA'd. But I have been in some kind of precarious situations. Like one night, I couldn't get in the shelter. They wouldn't open the door, and the thing is, they knew I was coming. I spoke to certain people, and it didn't work out. You know what I had to do? I had to hang out at a bus stop all night long until the first bus came so I could get on it. That's all I could do. And it was luckily it was okay. It was okay. It was good. But yeah, being homeless is a scary situation by any stretch of the imagination. And for all you people out there, I wish you well. I wish you well. I really do.